for future viewing on our website. This morning, our minister, the Reverend Tom Bozeman, will be preaching the sermon. Please turn off or silence your devices, and as you do so, allow yourself to enter sacred time together and take a breath. And another. And join in the spirit of reverence. Now, join us on page 431 by Barbara Wells. O spinner, weaver of our lives, your loom is love. May we who are gathered here be empowered by that love to weave new patterns of truth and justice into a web of life that is strong, beautiful, and everlasting. Flaming chalice is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism. It suggests the transformations that take place when we are held within religious community. When we light the chalice in worship, we illuminate a world that we feel called upon to serve with love and a sense of justice. Please join us in lighting our chalice by reading together the words on the screen or in your order of service. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, celebration of a life we share together.
As a democratic denomination, we operate by covenant rather than by creed. And so I would invite you into a recovenanting process with us this morning, where we take a few sections of our covenant and read them aloud and say afterwards, after each section, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love. But one aspect of being a covenantal group is that we can update our covenant ongoingly through our own democratic processes. So if you see something in this that, I don't, maybe we should word that differently, maybe we should update that or add something or subtract it. It's supposed to be a living document. So I would encourage you to take note of that and talk amongst each other and help us in having it be alive in that way. So for all the ways that we have neglected to consider our thoughts before speaking, communicate in a clear and positive manner, and to pause before acting, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love. For all the ways that we have neglected to speak directly to those concerned with an issue, offer and receive appropriate criticism and praise, and provide timely, specific, and clear feedback, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love. And for all the ways that we have not been appropriately supportive of others without taking sides, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love. So having recovenanted with one another, I invite you to just turn and look at these beautiful folks that we just recovenanted with. Maybe wave your hands, maybe smile at them. Maybe the folks on the other side of the camera joining us online as well. Beautiful. Welcome everyone this morning. And then I invite you to rise and body your spirit and join in singing hymn 1038 in your teal hymnals, the 23rd Psalm.
1038. We haven't done this one too much, but it's very much like a responsive reading. It's just on pitches. So we would just flow together like that. And I will lead you through it. Here we go. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all I need. She makes me lie down in green meadows beside the still waters. She will lead. She restores my soul. She guides my wrongs. She leads me in the path of good things. She fills my heart with songs. Even though I walk through a dark and dreary land, there is nothing that can shake me. She has said she won't forsake me. I'm in her hand. She sets a table before me in the presence of my foes. She anoints my head with oil. She cup overflows. Surely, surely goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life, and I will live in her house forever, forever and ever. Glory be to our mother and daughter and to the holiest of holies, as it was in the beginning, is now, and never shall be, world without end. Amen.
Please be seated. Anytime we gather virtually in person is an opportunity to share what is inside of us with one another. It's obviously been a big week. I don't know if any of you have paid attention to the news. There was an election that happened. So I imagine that might be on your hearts and your minds. That is, of course, welcome in this space. And also anything else, because that's not the only thing that's been going on in the world. So anything either in your personal life, in the lives of friends or family. Anything else is also welcome in this space, in addition to the big political elephant in the room. Yeah. In the silent sanctuaries of our hearts, may we continue to weave the fabric of this community into ever more beautiful patterns. And I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our doxology. Be seated and open your gray hymnals to 588.
I'll be reading the words on the screen in white and in your hymnals in standard print, and you'll be reading what is in italics or in blue. Is not this the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke. Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house when you see them naked, to cover them, and not to hide yourself from your own kin? Then shall your light break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger, the speaking of evil, if you offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. Thank you. The story today is The Boy Who Cried Wolf by Aesop. A shepherd boy, watching a flock of sheep over his near his village, grew lonely. He devised a way to get some attention and companionship by playing a trick on the villagers. One morning he yelled, "Wolf! Wolf!" When his neighbors ran to help save their flock and livelihood, they found the sheep placidly cropping grass. The boy laughed and laughed. The villagers were angry at the boy and warned him not to call them if there was no danger. And yet, the next day, he did it again. "Wolf! Wolf!" he shouted. The villagers came running. When they found the boy had tricked them again, they were even angrier than the day before. Warning him not to lie again, they went back to their work. The next day, as the shepherd boy lay watching the sheep on the hillside, a wolf came out of the woods. The boy shouted in terror, "Help me! The wolf is killing the sheep!" But no one paid any attention to his cries, and no villager came to help. The wolf destroyed the whole flock and then attacked the boy himself. And when the village buried the boy, they made sure to inscribe on his gravestone the following words: "We were the wolf all along."
There's an addendum there by Nigerian philosopher Bayo Kamalafe. So prior to moving out here to the Midwest, I was living in Everett, Washington. And I was very grateful that I was looking for an apartment at some point in my ministry there, and somebody in the congregation said, "Oh, I saw an advertisement for an apartment in Everett in the newspaper." And I thought, they still have ads in the newspaper for apartments? And there was, lo and behold, there was an ad there for an apartment that was much more to my liking, much cheaper, by a guy who specifically did not want to put any ads online. He only wanted to put it in the newspaper. So I would have never found out about this if it weren't for this eagle-eyed congregant who pointed out to me, and I went and I moved in. And I got to have this. It was, like I said in a previous sermon, only 450 square feet, so it was small. But I got a view of Puget Sound from my window, and a view across the sound from there, and getting to watch the sunset over the water was just absolutely magnificent. And so I really loved so much about that place. But after I had lived there for about a year and a half, I noticed that there was this new big truck that would park outside of the apartment building that I was in. And it wasn't just a big truck. I mean, any of you who've seen like those big 1-ton trucks, they're pretty large, but they get even larger when you attach things to the back of them. And so there would frequently be some sort of equipment that would be attached to the back of it. Now, the parking near my place was fairly minimal. There were a few spots right out in front, and it was sort of first come, first serve. There was no allocated parking, and there was no driveway or anything like that. And so this one guy would take up about 3 of those parking spaces between his truck and the stuff that was attached to the back of it. And he usually wouldn't park it. It's one of those, I don't know if you're familiar with the way they do parking in some areas where there's just one big rectangle that covers all of the parking spaces. It's not divided up into smaller sections than that. So you just sort of take up however much you take up. And he wouldn't even be kind enough to pull towards the front of all of those parking spaces. So it'd be like 3/4 of a car length in front that wouldn't be able to be used because he wouldn't pull forward, and then there would be a bunch of space at the back that wouldn't sort of take up all the 5 parking spaces with this huge contraption. And so when I was lucky enough to pull into the space before he was there, I'm going to take up a bunch of this space, and I'm going to prevent him from hogging it all to himself. I never exchanged words with the guy. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what he looked like. All I knew was that he had a way of taking up space that I did not appreciate one bit. When I was about to move out of the place, I used this company that drops off a trailer that you fill up, and then they come by and somebody drives it off for you. And so I went to the city and I got the permits of, okay, we're going to have it this time, and they advised you to print out notices to give to your neighbors, and so I printed one out for everybody in the apartment building and the next one over, and dropped it off there and called anybody whose phone number I had, say, hey, heads up, there's going to be a moving truck. We need to leave the spaces open. I put up the signs that the city gave me on all the poles to notify people that they couldn't park there. Then the day of moving comes when they're going to drop off the trailer, and lo and behold, there's the truck with the stuff attached to it. And so I went and I knocked on this guy's door. I'd never talked to him before, but I knew which apartment he lived in. I don't remember how I found that out, but I knew which apartment. And I knocked on his door, and he came to the door, and I said, hey, so I put up these signs. There's a moving truck coming. You can't park here. And he said, yeah, that doesn't work. That's not legal. You have to go through this other route. And I said, no, I talked to the people of the city, and that's what they said. Like, no, that's not correct. Okay, the moving truck's going to be here in like an hour. Can you just move the truck? Like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I went back and I tried to find the number for the local city government to have the person come out. And so they ended up sending out a parking enforcement officer to come and talk to him, and talked to him for about a half an hour. And eventually he moved the truck, and the parking enforcement officer went off. And then about 10 minutes later, I looked out the window, and the truck was there again. And so thankfully, the parking enforcement officer had called me from her cell phone, and so I called her back, and I said, hey, so apparently he just pulled around the block and parked in the same place again. She said, okay, I don't know what this guy's problem is. But she circled the block and came around and told him once again to move the truck, and he finally moved the truck, and my moving situation was able to proceed. So all of that being kind of a pain, logistical hurdle, but I noticed the impact that had on my body. I was just like, why can't you just do it? Why does this have to be so hard? And in that interaction that I had with him, his way of being with me was so brusque and so aggressive and so completely disinterested in what was going on for me, that I noticed this revulsion toward him as a person. The idea of looking at him, the idea of being around him, the idea of moving out and getting to be further away from him felt like a very, very desirable thing to happen. And so I just couldn't wait to get out of there to not be around this guy. When I was in North Carolina for 8 days canvassing before the election, we would go to a bunch of different neighborhoods, and there was this one neighborhood that I went to that had a whole bunch of signs for the candidate I was not supporting for the election. And I was specifically knocking on doors of people who were either registered Democrats or not registered in a particular party or something like that. But that was definitely a minority of the houses that I was going to. And in addition to just seeing all these signs around, the first door that I knocked on of a registered Democrat, I talked to him about his voting plan and what he was going to do. He said, I'm with you on all of that, but all these people who live around me, they're all bastards. I thought, well, that's an interesting way to talk about it. And as I made my way around the back down the block from his house, I would sort of look around at all these houses, and I would sort of imagine a version of this guy that lived in my building. A version of this, like, what are you even doing? I don't like you. And then I continued through the neighborhood, and it's one of those neighborhoods, I don't know if this is like it where you live or that you've experienced it, where there's a lot of dog owners who leave their dogs outside and don't have a fence and haven't trained their dogs in any way. And so I came to this one block, and I saw a dog just sort of walking around in the yard and didn't really notice me, so I thought I'd kind of work my way around and go to the little cul-de-sac next to it. And then there was another dog over there, similarly, who did notice me and started barking. And so I thought, well, I don't know if I want this second dog to tip the first dog off. And so I'm just going to not do this street. So I go back to the first street, and then these two dogs bound up me from another house. And the owner's like, no, they're very nice. They're very nice. And I wanted to say, well, I'm sure they're very nice to you. But often the owner has a different place in their lives. So between the first guy's warning about all these bastards and all these signs that I was seeing and the dogs that were coming after me, I was not having a particularly good day. And the sense that I got of what it was like to be in that neighborhood was one of discomfort. Of like, why am I even here? Do I fit in this place? Wouldn't it be safer and more comfortable for me to be somewhere else with people that I identify with, that people that see the world more like me? There's a discomfort that didn't just occur to me as like, oh, this isn't very much fun, but it colored how I saw the rest of the world. And it was colored by my own previous experience. We carry our own previous experiences into every moment that we live. Unless we happen to have amnesia, every moment is informed by all the ones before. In the aftermath of the election, there's been lots and lots of writing about why the election went the way that it did. And I don't know if you've noticed the pattern, but the people who said before the election that the Democrats were too far left are now saying that the reason that they lost the election was because they were too far left. And the people who were saying before the election that the Democrats were too far right are now saying after the election that the reason they lost the election was because they were too far right. And the people who said before the election that the Democrats were ignoring the Americans' experience of the economy and inflation are now saying after the election that the reason they lost was because they were ignoring the experiences of the American people around inflation and the economy. And the people who said before the election that the complaints around the economy were misplaced and uninformed are now saying after the election the Democrats lost because people are misinformed and their concerns are misplaced. And the people who said before the election that there should be an open Democratic primary are now saying that the decision of Biden to drop out as late as he did was the reason that they ended up losing the election. So basically, the stories haven't changed. The stories haven't changed. New insight comes with time and space to engage in deep thinking. And right now, people are doing a lot of picking up the ideas that have been laying around and running with them. So maybe it might help just a bit to say that there is no single cause for any election, for any event to turn out the way that it does. In fact, as somebody who has worked in politics, whose previous career involved politics to a fair amount, I can tell you that that is one of the principal strategies of any political game, is to convince people that among a whole bunch of different causes, that there's one in particular that really tipped the scales, and whichever is the one that I happen to agree with. You can see this in many popular history or science books, that the real reason that the world is this way is because of this one plague, or this one war, or this one migration, or this one ecological collapse, or whatever else changed the course of history in the year 300, or 429, or 1672, or 1735, or 1968. But of course, if you zoom out just a little bit, there are lots of causes. For this particular election, there's race, gender, LGBTQIA issues, Palestine, Ukraine, immigration, the economy, messaging, people's education, class, misinformation, campaign finance, global frustration with incumbents, societal frustration with the disruption of the coronavirus, and a million other things that you could list. We're all in the mix. But if you zoom out even further, this cause and effect relationship starts to wither away, and it becomes more of a systemic issue. I've mentioned to many people in this congregation that every organization is perfectly calibrated to continue to get the same result that it's been getting. That's just how it works. In a congregation, it functions in a particular way. The folks who like how it functions, they come and they stick around. The folks who don't like how it functions, they go somewhere else. And so it continues to perpetuate itself. It's true for an individual. If I'm living my life in a particular way that has a certain equilibrium to it, even if I don't like it in some way, it tends to continue itself. If I have some kind of addiction that I'm managing just well enough, might as well continue it. It's also true for a country, that it perpetuates the way that it has been, the way that it continues on into the future. Our story this morning, with that original part from the Greek storyteller Aesop and the addendum from Nigerian philosopher Bayo Komolafe, isn't saying simply that we are monstrous wolves. It's saying that the wolf is not the external threat. The wolves are just as much a part of things as the people in that society. Just like we can pretend that insects are not all around us or a part of our society by either deciding to kill the ones that we find inside or to pick them up and place them outside if we want to do that instead. And each of the beings in the story had their own part to play. The boy who lied the first couple times, the wolf who satisfied its hunger, and the people who withdrew their care. They're all a part of the whole of what was happening. And if any of those had chosen differently, then things might have turned out differently. Each had their own part to play in the progression of events. There's a particular way of life that we've become accustomed to in this country that was shaped in large part by the New Deal policies of the U.S. federal government in the 1930s. There was no one cause of the New Deal. It arose because many different things were happening. The progressive movement was growing more powerful. The Great Depression happened. The labor movement was in its ascendancy. Many other causes played into this. Foreign issues going on around the globe. Each of those many different causes towards which we can point was so powerful a disruption of how things had been in this country that people were able to lurch out of it, of how it had functioned for the previous 60 years and create a new way of operating. Over the past 90 years since the New Deal was adopted, we've been living in its shadow. And we've seen mounting disruptions to this way of life. The stagflation of the 1970s, the Reagan Revolution of the 1980s, the end of the Cold War, the contract with America, 9/11, the 2008 financial crisis, the Obama and Trump years. If the familiar society that was shaped by the New Deal is under transformation, then Nigerian philosopher Okomolafe, who had the ending of that story this morning, invites us in this way. May we find the openings to do more than we think is possible now. Maybe something more compelling than victory shimmers in the near distance. Something that urges us to lose our way together. We will need new forms of care. May we be found anew. We spent 10 weeks digging into Unitarian Universalist theology just recently. And in the third week of that series, we talked about the category of theology called soteriology. It's about what saves us. And I outlined 3 general views of salvation. First, the otherworldly escape into heavenly reward. If we do the right things and God likes us, then we'll go to the good place. Or a second one, the idealistic commitment to creating earthly success. If we successfully create heaven on earth, then we'll get to experience salvation. Or a third way of thinking about salvation, fully arriving in this life, experiencing our full aliveness. Salvation isn't something for us to possess as individuals. It's not something that we need to earn. Rather, it's something in which we can participate. It's something in which we can participate with each other in the here and now. Although we are right to grieve whatever may be lost, there are opportunities as well. In the words of scholar Biko Mandela Gray, this may be a moment to unlearn American theology, by which he means it is a moment to absolve ourselves of the idea that presidents are salvific figures. Absolve ourselves of the idea that presidents are salvific figures. As Rebecca Parker argues, resisting evil requires advanced wisdom, courage, and skill at unmasking deception, at evading being duped or tempted, standing ground in things of greater value than the prestige in the eyes of others, recognizing abundance rather than running on the imagined emptiness and seeking to accumulate more than is needed. Calmness in the face of evil comes to those who, rather than being frantic to purge it, concentrate their attention on recognizing and resisting its habits. Salvation manifests as a solid sense of enough, in gratitude for life's goodness, showing a humble capacity to be a part of the web of life. The blessings of salvation are evident in those who hold tragedy and beauty together. Hold tragedy and beauty together, integrating life's complex and difficult counterpoints within a strong heart that bears reality with love and moral clarity. Noam Chomsky has been critiqued over the decades for being excessively critical of the United States. People will say, really, are we the worst country in the world? Why don't you criticize other people? And his response has always been that it's an elementary moral principle that you critique your own actions and what you have agency over than somebody else's actions, which you don't have any agency over. What unites all those analyses that I gave before of what the Democrats did right or wrong, what the Republicans did right or wrong, is it's all about what other people should do. Oh, they should have done this, or they should have done that. And analysis has its place. But in my interactions with that neighbor of mine, I had no power over his actions. I could analyze it all I wanted, I could critique it all I wanted, and it wouldn't resolve my experience of him. My power, my ability to engage, to have agency, was around my own actions. I remember the election in 2004. After years of protest and organizing against what had been going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, to see the margin of victory for the candidate that I was against go up from where it had been before was shocking and appalling. And yet, and the lesson that the Democrats took from that was, I know what we need to win the next time around. We need a really strong Midwestern white man to be powerful and win us back the presidency. And then 40 years later, there was an anti-war black Democrat from Chicago who ended up totally running away with the whole thing. If you'd said that that would happen in 2004, right at the election, how likely would that have seemed? That would not have seemed likely at all. May we choose, with the agency that we have, to open the way for the unexpected, to allow the old ways to break down and the new ways to be planted. The planet that sustains us is the only known planet with living, breathing skin. That skin is called dirt. From a far enough distance away, we are indistinguishable from that planetary skin. From right up close, closer than our eyes can see unaided, it is the same. We are land with legs. Many of the ancients believed this too. Jewish, Christian, Islamic traditions hold that the first human, Adam, was made of clay and breath. The name Adam means earth being. And now all around us in this hemisphere at this time of year, the earth is breaking itself down. But fields and gardens that appear fallow are actually quite lively in the internal process of decomposition, creating rich, healthy soil. So let us, like the earth, find life in the quiet turmoil, in the quiet internal churning of the breakdown. What in your own life, maybe setting aside the political situation, what in your own life is dying away? What do you need to let go of in order to allow more life into your world? Heeding Rebecca Parker's thoughts that frantic action won't purge evil. What can we let go of? What centeredness can we find? Maybe letting go of a grudge that's been weighing us down, or a regret that's been tugging at us, or an attitude or a habit that throws us off our balance, or a relationship or status or a sadness that we've been carrying. What is it that you will let decompose so that its death can bring new life into your world, new capacity into how you show up for yourself and others? Put a name to it if you can. And remember what you've named it. And what will you plant in the compost that it becomes? What seed will you push under that earth that will use the soil as food to grow something new? Put a name to that seed. And remember that. So now maybe you have two words, something that you are letting go to decompose, and something that you're planting to grow. Just hold on to those two words. We'll do a little ritual with them in just a moment. You should have received a small cup with some soil in it when you came into the sanctuary this morning. If for some reason you did not, just raise your hand. Anybody not get one? Okay, great. Would somebody get Brian a cup of soil? And Connie as well. There's some extra ones right up here. Beautiful, thank you. Beautiful, thank you so much, Patricia and Maggie, for spreading those around. Without decay, there would be no soil. Without soil, no seed could flourish, no seed would be fed. Just so parts of us must decay so that the new parts can flourish. Parts of us as individuals, parts of us as a society, parts of us as organizations. Chapters, themes, and characteristics of our identities must be allowed to compost so that fresh characteristics, themes, and chapters may flourish. Embracing our dissolutions is scary. They are a window into dying. But refusing to do so leads to suffering and prohibits new life. So why are we so afraid? Why is it so hard to trust our own becoming? The seeds of you need the decay of you. This ritual gives us some practice on an individual level of what we might aim towards on a societal level. Here we can ease into decay, embrace it, and trust the seeds, trust the soil, our home, our place of rejuvenation and return. In this ritual, we may return to our most fundamental home, the earth. Return to who you fundamentally are. Return to what you are in essence. Return to where you are born and reborn again, this home of your soul, the soil. Let us prepare for that return with some song. I invite you to remain seated and join in singing Return Again. So I will ask each of you to come forward and form a line down the middle in front of this bowl here. If you prefer not to come forward, then we can have somebody come out and help you with the soil piece. I might come out and help you myself. So come down this aisle, and then you can make your way back either there or coming up around the chalice over here. And so when you're ready with this bowl right here, you can pour some dirt into your hand and just feel its texture against your skin. Maybe rub it around a little bit. Feel the richness there. And remember what you named in your meditation earlier that you're going to let go of this season. And just press that into the soil and drop it in. And we can do this in silence. There's seeds work unseen. They need no accompaniment. We are of the earth. This is our body. So let us, like earth, find life in the quiet internal churning of the breakdown. Decomposition feeds the seed. What will you let go of in order to discover a new flourishing? What part of you will you let decompose in order that its death may bring new life into your world? So please come down the center and make your way forward with your soil. If you could turn off the music so we can have just silence for the ritual. Here is the stuff of us, our body, death and life, the nexus of creation and destruction, our creative dormancy. May this water be a blessing from our community upon our creative dormancy. May this water encourage growth. May we anticipate the new shoot and the flower and find confidence in the grace of this world. May we trust the depths and call them into the light. Now, please remain seated and join in singing again, Return Again.
We choose to return again to who we are, to what we are, and to where we are. This month, we are sharing our Loose Change for Social Change offering with Hearts in Motion. This is family giving. From now through December 15th, we're collecting to help Hearts in Motion provide a better Christmas for abused women and their children. The money in the basket goes to sustaining the mission of our congregation. The money in our cups goes to family giving. Now I would like 4 volunteers to come forward. For those not with us in person today, there's an online link for both one-time and regular donations. For your prayers, your presence, your service, and your gifts, we are truly grateful. Another way that we walk together is by joining together for fun and fellowship. I have a few announcements. I'll let Pastor Tom go first with his.
So if you didn't notice it in the upcoming recently, just wanted to highlight that there's a new opportunity for folks on Monday nights where from 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. on Zoom each week, we'll be having some Bible study with Pastor Tom. Whether we love it or hate it or are indifferent to it, so much of our society, good and bad, has been built on what people have found in the Bible, often by those who've never even read it. But it can be a profoundly nourishing and empowering experience to let our assumptions fall away as we encounter what's actually there. So starting tomorrow, each week, we'll be holding a 90-minute Monday night gathering on Zoom to do just that. But rather than start with Genesis, where a lot of people start, we'll be starting with some of the books that were written first, so some of the early prophets. And we'll be starting with the book of Amos, both tomorrow and the following Monday. And there's no need to read anything in advance, but they're pretty short books, so if you wanted to look at them beforehand, then you're certainly welcome to do that. And they'll be on the church Zoom, so just look in the upcoming for the link for those, 6 to 7:30.
Thank you. And Pete has an announcement.
Hello.
Hi.
Two quick announcements. One is that Aaron's Farm Tour is this coming Saturday, November 16th. We got about 13 people signed up. Aaron's Farm is just 3 miles away here in Hobart. The pastor talked about salvation and participating in the here and now. Aaron's Farm is a female-run, female-owned sanctuary for animals that were not loved and not wanted. She does a fantastic job on a shoestring. It's right here in town. We've collected for her several $100s. You guys all raised several $100s for her just a couple months ago. And we'll have a tour of the facility. It'd be great for kids and grandkids this Saturday at noon. The address is 5200 South Liverpool Road here in Hobart. So any questions after the service, talk to me or Cindy or Michelle. This sign-up sheet will be back out right outside this door. The second announcement is, while we as a religious institution do not endorse political candidates, it's perfectly appropriate for us to express gratitude for those local leaders, local elected leaders who have stood by us and for our values. And one, Frank Mervan, right in this building, twice has come, spoken at rallies at this building for women's rights in the last 2 years. He stayed the whole time, stayed to the very end. I have a card here that's going to be out in the parish hall of thanks and gratitude for standing for women's rights and for standing with this church. So please sign it, give them a note of gratitude. Thank you.
Next Sunday is the last Sunday to bring your bags for sharing the harvest. I don't see any out there. What's holding everybody up here? There's a list in the upcoming, and you could pick up a list out in the parish hall by the nursery, in front of the nursery, and try to get them in by next Sunday. The in gathering for the bags will be at Pastor Leah's First United Methodist Church in Hobart. You're all welcome to come to the gathering, and if you can, bring something for a potluck meal. Otherwise, you're just free to come. Pardon? In gathering. We bring all the books, and then all the books. We bring all the bags and we meet with the other congregations. Next. Oh, yeah, Thursday, November 21st at 6 p.m. Sorry. Mark your calendars for the annual Thanksgiving luncheon here on Sunday, November 24th at noon, right after the service. We invite you to bring a dish to share or simply come and enjoy the company of your fellow congregants as we celebrate the season of gratitude together. Look forward to seeing many of you there. On Sunday, December 7th, after the service, we'll be hosting a holiday decorating party. Join us to set up the church for the holiday season, hang ornaments, trim the tree, and add some festive cheer to the building. And don't forget to bring your favorite Christmas cookies to share during this for fun and fellowship. That was it. Did I miss anything? Anybody have anything to add? Okay, I want to make sure. Okay, now please rise in body and spirit and join in singing number 46. Now the day is over. Please be seated. Closing words are by Robert T. Weston. Autumn, we know, is life en route to death. The asters are but harbingers of frost. The trees, flaunting their colors at the sky, in other times will follow leaves where the leaves have fallen, and so shall we. Yet other lives will come, so may we know, accept, embrace the mystery of life we hold a while. Not mourn that it outgrows each separate self, but still rejoice that we may have our day. Lift high our colors to the sky, and give in our time fresh glory to the earth.